Hello everyone and welcome to your favorite chat show, Ladies Lounge. My name is Adeola and we're here again on your screen. And of course I'm here with my ladies.
Hello.
Hello. I am going to be coming back to introduce our special guest, but you know, we are still on the topic of cervical screening, which we started last week. And I hope you got away with so much information today. We have even so much more to enlighten you with. I am going to be introducing my guest. First, I love your hair.
Oh, thank you.
I had to say that. And of course, my girls are looking beautiful as
Thank
usual.
you. You too. You're looking
Data, all this drama. Stephanie, now those arms, please, can you just flop your arms a little bit? Lovely. We are here, and of course, I have a special guest, Dr. Adeola Olaitan. Please clap for me because I got it right.
Absolutely.
It's such a pleasure to have you with us. It's a pleasure to have you with us. Dr. Adeola Olaitan is a consultant gynecologist, University College London Hospitals NHS Foundation. It's great to have you on our show.
It's a pleasure to be here. Thank you.
Thank you so very much. So we started this very, very important topic last week on cervical screening. And definitely we all know that it's an old-time one, but we have to refresh ourselves because it's definitely still ongoing. I want to throw this question to you. So back to the basics. What is cervical screening? And why is it necessary for our women to do it?
So cervical screening is important because it protects women against cervical cancer. The cervix, first of all, just to explain the anatomy of it, is the neck of the womb. It's the bit that expands so that babies can be born. Now, the cervix can have changes which are not cancer, but if undetected and untreated, can put women at risk of cancer. These changes cause no symptoms, so if you didn't go for screening, you wouldn't know that you had the changes. The advantage is that if you're screened and these changes are picked up, it's fully treatable and women then don't go on to develop cancer.
Oh, okay. So what age group? For example, I have a daughter who's 10. Is there a certain age group that have to go for the test, and how often do they have to go for the test?
So screening starts from the age of 25.
Okay.
And from 25 to 50, it's every 3 years, assuming the screening has been normal, that it hasn't picked up any abnormalities. And then from the age of 50 to 64, it's every 5 years.
Okay.
And if the screening is normal and you've always attended your tests, you get discharged after the age of 64.
You don't have to do it after the age of 64?
You're no longer invited routinely to screening after the age of 64.
Oh, okay.
But can women still have problems with their cervix after the age of 64?
So the reason why people are discharged, if their tests have all been normal and they've attended all their tests, is that it then becomes pretty unlikely. However, if women want to be screened after the age of 64, they still can.
Okay.
They just have to request the test. They're no longer routinely invited.
Okay, so from the age of 25 is routine.
It's routine. Yeah.
Till the age of 64.
Indeed.
Yeah, okay. What's the difference between cervical screening and smear test? Because smear test is the term we knew for a very long time.
I was just going to go.
Yeah, so what's the difference?
Cervical screening, I think, is a more appropriate term because it describes what actually happens when they're screened to protect them against cancer. The test, I suppose, is a smear test. It's when the cells are taken from the cervix and looked at in the lab. So essentially, they're the same thing. It's been rebranded as cervical screening because I think that's more descriptive and more appropriate.
Yeah.
And when I was researching about this, I saw a test called the PAP test. Is that different from the cervical screening?
It's the same test. It's known by lots of different names. And just out of interest, it was first developed many, many years ago by a Greek guy called Papa Nikolaou. So it was known as the Papa Nikolaou smear.
Oh, okay.
And now
I knew it was
smear.
pap smear. Yeah.
I need to spot smear as well.
Yeah, so it's the same thing as
It's the
cervical
same thing.
screening.
Americans call it pap smear. We tend to just call it smear or screening.
And it's reason for changing from making it the screening test instead of the smear test is because the smear test is kind of, people think it's like an STD test, or is that the answer or not?
Okay, I was going to say something.
You can go ahead, do please.
No, it was It had to do with the papillomavirus, so I thought, but I don't think we want to go into that.
Exactly.
That's right.
Okay.
Yes.
Okay.
That's right.
But I mean, essentially, I think that screening is a more acceptable term because
Yes.
what you're doing is screening women to protect them against cervical cancer.
Yeah, because when we say smear test, it's
I think
like
the
you're
smear
thinking of
is like the
cancer,
smear.
thinking of
Yes.
Yeah.
and people are scared.
It probably
bit
has more
skeptical.
negative
That's
It has
right.
more-
connotation
yes,
to
yes.
it.
Okay.
Yeah. We've heard about the new Cervical Screening Saves Lives campaign. What's the aim of this campaign and why is it happening now? What's the reason why it has to be at this particular time?
The aim of the campaign is to encourage more women to go for cervical screening, and this is because despite the success of the screening program, the attendance at screening is at an all-time low. It's the lowest it's been for 20 years.
Oh, wow.
And 2 women a day still die of cervical cancer, which is a tragedy because it's a potentially preventable disease. So the aim of the campaign is to demystify screening, to inform women about it, to dispel the myths, and to encourage women to take up their screening invitation.
Is there a particular way this is being done, or is it going to be done? Is there any arrangement? What is happening? How is this going to be done?
I think the idea is to use all forms of media to raise awareness about
Media,
cervical screening.
right.
So I think when I was reading on this topic, I realized that most women still are not going for the test. I think there was a high when we had the lady Jade Goody that died, I think 2002, and she was a Big Brother contestant. But now it's sort of gone down. What's the reason why you think women are not actually doing the test? Because obviously saving life, you can save your life by going for the screening. What's the reason for women not to?
Absolutely. So the reason women don't go for screening is multitude. I think one is a misunderstanding about the test. The second is people often say that they feel embarrassed about the test.
Yeah.
It's interesting because the same people who are embarrassed about the test will go for a bikini line wax.
Well, true.
So
there we
that's
go.
a good way to put it.
Yeah, absolutely.
In terms of embarrassment and pain. And it's interesting, this morning I was answering questions from a journalist about women's perception of their labia, and a lot of people feel embarrassed because they think that their genitals look different
From someone else,
from someone else's. And I think it's important to understand nobody's judging you, and no 2 labia are the same, in the same way as no 2 faces are the same. So, comparing yourself with another person and thinking mine doesn't look like that actually doesn't matter. The people who do the tests are professionals. They'll put you at your ease and they will do the test. But I think there's a lot of, misunderstanding about what happens when you go for a test.
And can you choose which sex of practitioner or nurse to have? Is it mainly women, or do we have men as well?
Good question.
Yeah.
If you want a woman, request a woman, and that you will be accommodated, and a woman will do your test.
Because when I went for my test as a man, I was like, what? But it was fine.
Well, I'm glad you went through it.
I think men will be more delicate if you ask me. Don't judge me, but I think they'll be more delicate. But that's by the way, really.
It was very good.
I don't know, I
because
just feel so. I haven't had a man done it on me.
They asked me, are you comfortable with him doing it? And they were very nice. And I said, well, yes, but there was someone else standing. I said, it's fine. So he did it.
I actually requested for a woman.
So when you say a lot of women, is it a black woman thing? Because we've heard before that black women, a lot of black women don't like to go. Is there a reason why black women in particular?
I didn't know about that.
There is some evidence that black women are less likely to go for screening tests.
Okay.
And again, it's interesting because we looked at this a few years ago, and we did a study going to black hairdressers, whereas best place to find black women on a Saturday afternoon.
And get hairdressers. Oh, of course.
And we got them to fill in a questionnaire about whether they were aware of cervical screening and whether or not they attended, and if they didn't, why they didn't. And it's interesting because the reasons are no different in general from the general public. Access, lack of time, if you don't live near where your GP surgery is, that causes difficulties. But there were particular groups that had peculiar concerns. One group was people who had a religious faith, whatever it was. They believed that they were protected. And the other is this idea that if you are promiscuous, you're more likely to get cervical cancer. And I think it's important to discuss this because it's
important that you throw more light on that.
It has nothing to do with promiscuity.
I would never have thought.
I think I need you to say that again. That
Yes.
promiscuity has nothing to do with
Yes.
cervical screening or cervical cancer or whatever.
It absolutely doesn't. And, you know, you can have one sexual partner and still be at risk. So I think it's important to dispel that myth.
Yes.
And everybody's at risk. And therefore, everybody should go for regular screening.
Thank you so much, Dr. Adeola. That's been really awesome. We are going on a quick break right now. Do not go anywhere, because when we come back, we are going to be looking at what to expect when we go for screening tests and how long it takes. We'll be right back.
I'd like to thank my grandma,
My sister.
my lover, my bestie,
My Westie.
my mother.
Thank you for reminding me to go to my cervical screening.
2 women die every day from cervical cancer. But cervical screening can prevent potentially harmful cells developing and stop cancer before it starts. So don't ignore your invite. And if you missed your last cervical screening, book an appointment with your GP practice now.
Yes, I am. I'm quite aware of cervical screening.
It's a screening that we do, I think, 2 times or 3 times, every 3 years or every 2 years.
If anyone's had like a smear test done, it's the same sort of procedure, but it's more with a camera, internal and then external.
I know from my experience it happens like every couple of years, and you go to the GP and then they test you and then send you results and stuff.
I've been many times. They call me every 3 years. They write to me and then I go.
I just did mine last year and we do it every 3 years. It's just to detect if there's any maybe head problem or hair or anything, so that they'll be able to deal with it and give you medication or whatever they want to do about it.
When you are from that, is it 40 or 50? I don't know. So you have to go for that screening because of cancer and other stuff. So it detects if you have it, so the earlier is better for the treatment.